About 2 years ago, the European Commission started a new process which they called a move towards single digital market in the EU. At the moment, for example, if you live in Spain, if you've got your subscription to Netflix, but then you go on holidays to Germany, you will not be able to access your Netflix account because you'll be blocked out as you're outside of your own regular domain, right? From the point of view of producers, particularly of makers of art house films, it costs a lot of money to pay tax on the release of a particular film in more than one country in the EU. So say you made a 2-minute animation film in Bulgaria and you want to show it all across the European Union, you have to pay a license fee in all of the countries that you want to do it. So the push in the EU is to create a framework that would basically bring those boundaries down.
So I'm interested in this explosion of writing around Europe within the last sort of 10 years. And what we see within this scholarship is a collision between the Europe defined by the European Union and then shifting contours of European film more generally.
So if you give all the support for production and do not ensure that this film gets to wherever it would be seen, the film still does not exist. I know dozens of formidable filmmakers who have fantastic potential, but there is no potential to continue their careers because their films are not sufficiently seen, and on the basis of not being sufficiently seen, they cannot make the next film and the next film and the next film. So one of these guys who I disliked when I was in Strasbourg was the person in charge of these issues, and so I said, like, why don't you consider supporting distribution? He says, the principle is that we will provide support at one point in the chain of the existence of the film, and usually this is the point of production. So if a project has received support at the moment of production, then it is not eligible to apply for distribution.
We adore European cinema. We think the filmmaking on the continent of Europe is the most exciting in the world, the most diverse. And we fortunately get funding from Creative Europe. They have a special fund for film festivals, which supports us, supports Encounters in Bristol,
right, yes.
And about 50 other festivals around Europe. In terms of the digital market, I think there's a lot of arguments against it. For us, we love the idea of it being easier for filmmakers to get their work shown in other markets. And I think if the digital market can help different EU countries maintain their identity with particular filmmaking and get it circulated around Europe and the rest of the world with reduced admin and rights issues and more circulation online with a wider EU identity as well as a national identity, I think that's going to really help.
When you speak about the single digital market, I'm not that pessimistic. One single digital market, you see commercially, you might imagine there is some advantage possible in common rules that makes life easier for exporting products in a virtual world. We may imagine that.
Now, this opens a can of worms, basically, because it's about how you regulate that space, how you provide equal access.
The funny thing about the internet is it doesn't really have any borders or frontiers. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing. I tend to think that overall it is a good thing. One of the things that I believe is that every film has its audience, and once upon a time that could be quite difficult to connect as a filmmaker, to connect your story to your audience. And one of the things that the internet is great at is removing things like physical borders and requirements for certain equipment to project a certain kind of film in a certain kind of country at a certain kind of time. It's all eventually going to be instantly available, instantly viewable.
At the same time, there is sort of this fear about over-regulation because a lot of people on the digital left believe that that may lead to censorship, very strict regulation, limited access to digital spaces. So this may not sound very new because, as a matter of fact, about 10 years ago we had similar debates about digital futures, and that was at the time when Twitter and Facebook were just emerging. And there was a lot of debate about how they were going to impact, again, freedom of speech, citizen journalism, circulation of audiovisual products, etc., etc. The difference now, though, is that after that 10-year period, we see greater role of those companies in very, very complex matters, including presidential elections, as we saw in the United States. And just yesterday, I think, Nigel Farage went to meet Julian Assange in London. So there's this weird connection between right-wing politics and, at the same time, left-wing digital practices.
You probably don't even recognise the fact that Google is hosting this page. That little symbol there, the AMP symbol, will show up, and I guarantee you if you carry out a news search on your mobile phone anytime, you'll see an AMP page. Some people would say, well, why adopt the format? Why not just stay with your website? Well, it's pretty simple. This carousel is going to take up most of the traffic and the people that actually click on it making their way through to a site. If you don't have an AMP format, you're not in that carousel. 80% of all the new digital advertising spend is taken by Google and Facebook.
The problem with these monopolies is that whereas on the street, if you have a problem, you can go to a judge. If Facebook deletes your post for some reason, there is no proper and clear recourse mechanism.
We've had the US election, and we've had the majority of consumption in Facebook during that election was fake news. So I'm hoping more than predicting that there is a return to trust, a return to quality journalism, to a place where facts are checked.
It's nice to decentralize power politically. It's very nice to have a country where municipalities have a huge influence on what the streets look like, what your life looks like in your town. But if there's no scrutiny on what it's doing, who holds these people to account?